This is what it's like to fly American Airlines Business Class from Los Angeles to Sydney on a Boeing 777. The business class cabin is 13 rows of business class, row 3 to 15 in a 1-2-1 configuration. All seats have aisle access. I had seat 15G, the last row of business class next to the lavatories. Premium economy is in the next cabin section, and I've got a separate video reviewing those seats that you can watch later if you're curious about how the premium economy experience compares to the business class experience. Now, in business class, the seat itself is big and fairly private and cocoon feeling that lays flat. We'll see that later. Now, on the seat was a big bag of bedding that we're going to see later too. On the interior side of the seat, away from the aisle, is the remote control for the AV system, a reading light, the seat controls, a power outlet, including a really slow charging USB-A power outlet. It took 5 hours to charge my Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra from 50 to 100%, but I guess on a 15-hour flight, that's probably okay. And there was also a really old school AV input setup that had RCA jacks and an iPod hookup. Wow. Curious, does anybody travel with an iPod anymore with this funky connector? I mean, I don't even know what this connector is for an iPod. Anyway, next to all the little control is a little cubby that had a bottle of water and some nice headphones in a fancy case made by Bang Olufsen. The headphones plug into a kind of hidden plug in the cabinet. Below that was a big side table that had the Amenity kit, the menu for the food, and some headphone disinfectant wipes. Below the side table is the eating table that kind of pivots out and folds open, nice and sturdy eating platform. Below the tables was another little cubby that had a pair of slippers in it. No socks. If you want socks, bring your own. And the seat itself had plenty of leg room with a little footrest at the end that turns into the end of the bed. Now, above the footrest is the TV screen. It's a really weird setup on this TV screen. It seems like it's at a pretty odd angle because it is. Now, there's a little lever that you can pull out to flip it out to a normal angle, but you have to stow the TV for taxi, takeoff, and landing, which means you can't really watch anything during taxi, takeoff, and landing. Kind of annoying. Turns out during those times I could actually see my neighbor's screen better than I could see mine. When I was watching mine, the screen was a pretty low resolution and not very crisp. Now back to the seat. We'll get back to the AV system in a little bit. By the aisle entry to the seat was a little literature pocket, and opposite that, a little cubby with a door for some small underseat storage for a purse, something like that. Then the armrest was over here. It pops up with a little switch. It can go up and down, but the armrest needs to be down for takeoff and landing. And behind my seat, because it was the last row, was another bigger cubby. Okay, back to the AV system. Let's talk about that. I was thinking it'd be a touch screen, and then I thought I was wrong. It wasn't a touch screen because I tried for a little while. It didn't work, so I used the remote control to move around. Turns out I touched it again, and it actually is a touch screen. It's just really old and is not very sensitive at all. You have to give it a really hard press to get it to register. Now, once actually in the thing, I found it had a quite good selection of movies and TV shows. There was also an area where you could see the onboard drinks, but not the onboard food. You could chat to other seats. There was some text-based news you could read, the usual map of where the plane is and where it's going, and a good selection of kids' content in its own little kids section. Notably, there were no games available. Seriously, American Airlines, no games. I was on Starlux just a couple weeks ago, and I was playing Angry Birds, and it was so much fun. Hey, let's get some games, okay? Now, the headphones themselves, they were the ones they provided, were fairly comfortable. They sounded pretty decent, but they weren't noise canceling. So after about 5 minutes with those, I broke out my Sony noise canceling headphones. I had to use the little 2-prong adapter to get stereo. Definitely no Bluetooth here, but definitely my Sony sounded much better than the provided Bang & Olufsen's. Now, once mostly everyone boarded, they offered some pre-departure drinks. The choices were orange juice, sparkling water, and sparkling wine. This was a nighttime flight that departs at about 11 p.m., so they dimmed the lights for taxi, and the flight departed right on time. During taxi, they came to take our dinner order. They had 4 choices: beef, chicken, fish, and a veggie option. We'll get back to what I ordered in a little bit. Let's take a look at what's in the Amenity kit. There's a toothbrush, toothpaste, eye mask, earplugs, hand lotion, and lip balm. No pen, no socks. All right, what's in the bedding kit? In the bedding kit, there's one big fluffy pillow and a big, nice, soft blanket that was quite warm. After takeoff and reaching a cruising altitude of 10,000 feet, they played some video sharing some information about the flight. Shortly thereafter, they passed out some hot towels. Well, they said they were hot towels. Turns out mine was more of a lukewarm towel once they got to my row. Maybe that's what I get for being seated in the last row. Then it was time for dinner. They brought out some great tablecloths to put on the table. They started with some drinks and some hot nuts. Luckily, these nuts were actually warmer than my hot towel, and I liked the nice big glasses for the drinks that had plenty of ice in them. I am an ice fiend. The first bit of food was the appetizers on a tray, a really basic green salad, meh, and some cold chicken, and a red slaw, more meh, and some bread with some butter. They had a few different choices of bread. I really liked the pretzel bread. For my main, I got the blackened barramundi, or the fish, because I already had one dinner before leaving home. Again, this was 11 p.m. flight, so I already had dinner at 6. I didn't want to eat too much of a second dinner, so I got a light dinner served with rice and citrus salsa. Yeah, it was just okay. Dessert time, you could have a choice of a fruit plate, a tart, or a hot fudge sundae. I picked the hot fudge sundae. You could also get some tea and some coffee. I actually think the sundae was probably the best part of my meal. All right, the lavatories, there are 4 of them in business class, 2 in back and 2 up front. They were pretty basic for international business class, really just a standard airplane toilet. No extra amenities here like mouthwash or lotion or anything. After mealtime and about 2 hours into the flight, they dimmed the lights for sleep time. Now it was time to break out the blanket and the pillow and go into full lie flat mode. I also discovered that there was a nice little night light by the slippers cubby, which was nice for some localized light into the seat. The sleep quality in the seat itself was good. I slept a good 9 hours, long enough for me to spread out at 6 feet tall. I didn't bottom out at the bottom, and wide enough that I could sleep on my side relatively comfortably. Now for snacks during the flight, they had a pretty nice mini buffet set up near the front lavatories with a bunch of snacks and drinks. They also had hot sliders that they would make and you could order. About 2.5 hours before landing, they brought the cabin lights up and they started breakfast by serving a peach smoothie. Tasty and refreshing breakfast. The food was served shortly thereafter. Pretty good for an airplane breakfast. Scrambled eggs, potatoes, ham, and a tomato, side of fruit, some yogurt, and a warm chocolate croissant. After brekkie, they showed an Australian customs video about all the things you can't bring into Australia, including that you need to declare if you've been near livestock in the last 30 days. I'm really glad I didn't visit that petting zoo last week with my daughter. All right. They collected the headphones about an hour before landing, and then they passed out these little earbuds, and then 10 minutes before landing, it was time to stow the screens. And then we have touchdown in Sydney.
And after 15.5 hours, I am finally here in Sydney. I usually record these like baggage claim or some parts of the airport, but they said no video in baggage claim, and then I just wanted to get my rental car and get on in because it was such a long flight. So I figured I would do this with the view of the Sydney Opera House right here in the background, just to share with my final thoughts overall of the flight. So overall, I really enjoyed the business class seat. The staff was really great. All the flight attendants that were assigned to business, really quite nice, really quite helpful. Brought anything that I ever wanted. It was also really great that I was able to get like 9 good hours of sleep on there in that nice comfy seat. I feel like the cons of the overall experience was that the plane is old, the offering is old. It didn't really feel very upscale or luxe, particularly the bathrooms. They didn't clean them as often as I felt they should, and the food offerings were not really that great. Now, to answer the question of is it worth it, I need to tell you the price. And so, obviously they fluctuate depending upon demand, but we'll start with an economy round-trip ticket from LA to Sydney. Those start at about $1,000. The premium economy tickets start at about $3,000. These are round-trip prices. And then the business class tickets that I was showing you here start at around $7,000 round-trip. Now, there are some ways to get them cheaper. American Airlines regularly will offer you cash upgrade awards. I've seen them for as cheap as $1,000 one way for a cash upgrade from economy into business class. The other option, and what I did, was actually to use a mileage upgrade, 30,000 miles and $350 to upgrade from the economy ticket into business class. When I called, it was waitlisted, but like 6 hours after they put me on the wait list, it cleared, and so that was pretty awesome. I think it was definitely worth it for the $350 and the 30,000 American Airlines miles to arrive in Sydney refreshed and ready to hit the ground. So I would absolutely do that again in a heartbeat. $7,000 on the other hand, that's a little bit of different math, but really depends how rested do you need to be to hit the ground on your first day in Sydney. All right, well, fellow explorers, if you're wondering how this compares to Premium Economy, you can check out my Premium Economy review right there. If you want to know how this compares to United Polaris, United's offering, you can check that out right here. Or if you want to see how this compares to one of my favorite business class offerings, Singapore Airlines, you can check that out right here. Or even more in my airline review playlist that you'll find in the description below. And if you're going to Sydney, you should definitely check out my Sydney travel tips video. You'll also find that in the description. All right, fellow explorers, as usual, I won't say goodbye because I'll see you in the next video.